I was in court the day the judge sentenced my father to 5 years for beating my stepfather severely. That was when I decided to stop telling the truth. My mother cried the entire drive home, while my stepfather stroked her cheek. "I'm going to stay with my friend Tilly for a few days," she whispered through tears. My stepfather smirked as I dug my nails into her arm. "Please don't leave me alone with him." Mom slapped me. "Your father filled your head with lies. Brandon has done nothing but care for us." An hour later, she left with all our suitcases. Brandon stood at the front door, turned the deadbolt with a click, slipped the key into his pocket, and let his eyes run over me. "Let's talk about what you told your father." I was halfway up the stairs when his hand caught my ankle. I kicked backward as hard as I could, slammed my bedroom door shut, and shoved my wardrobe in front of it. When I tried to open the window, I found screws drilled into the frame. He had prepared for this. I heard the power drill start downstairs, my stomach sinking as he moved up the steps. Soon the sound of the drill was right outside my door as he installed something I couldn't see. After a few minutes, the noise stopped, and his footsteps faded down the hall. I pushed the dresser aside and tried the door. It wouldn't budge. He had locked me in from the outside. "We have 3 days," his voice sang through the door. "3 days to show you what happens to little girls who lie about their stepdaddies." I tore through my closet looking for anything useful, and found my old Chromebook buried under some clothes. I opened Discord and messaged my friend. "Brandon locked me in my room. He's going to hurt me." She replied immediately. "Is this about your dad? You promised you wouldn't tell." Before I could respond, the screen went black. He had cut the power. I grabbed the lamp from my nightstand and swung it at the window with all my strength. Crack! An alarm screamed through the house. While I climbed through the broken glass, I could hear him slamming his body against my door, laughing like this was a game he'd been waiting to play. The door burst open behind me, but I didn't look back. I inched along the ledge toward the bathroom window. Before he could figure it out, I gripped the frame and dropped hard onto the tile. There was a small window above the toilet. I locked the bathroom door as Brandon shouted on the other side, blaming my father for ruining everything. He screamed over and over, but now Dad was gone. The bathroom door exploded inward. He grabbed my ankles, pulling me back. I screamed and clawed at the window frame until my fingernails bent and broke. He yanked so hard, he slipped, and I slid through, falling into the bushes below. Adrenaline drowned out the pain. I ran toward our neighbor Miss Apple's house. I looked back once. Brandon was walking out the front door calmly, his hand in his jacket pocket wrapped around something I couldn't see. Miss Apple's porch light flicked on, and her door opened. "Help!" I tried to scream, but it came out as a rasp. "Honey, come back inside," Brandon called, his voice sickly sweet. Miss Apple stepped onto her porch, alarmed. "Oh my goodness, what happened to you?" I collapsed on her lawn. "He locked me in my room. He's going to hurt me. Please call 911. Brandon knelt beside me with perfect concern. "Miss Apple, I'm so sorry. She's been having episodes since her father went to prison." He showed her dozens of fake messages from my mom. "Her mother warned me she might try something like this. She's been harming herself, making up stories. We thought giving her space would help. This is a cry for help." His voice was sad and convincing. Miss Apple began helping him lift me from the grass. I tried to pull away, but she held my arm, believing him. "Sweetheart, you're bleeding everywhere. Let's get you inside and call your mother." "Thank you so much," Brandon said, picking me up easily. The next thing I knew, we were back inside our house. Brandon sat me on the couch, fetched the first aid kit, and cleaned the cuts on my hands with stinging alcohol. "You're going to keep quiet now. No one's here to protect you." He reached under the couch and pulled out a rope. 3 days is a long time to be locked in here with me." He started wrapping it around my wrists. I bit down on his hand, tasting blood. He cursed and stumbled back as I scrambled away, heart hammering. He looked at his bleeding hand with shock mixed with something darker, like he hadn't expected me to fight back. His face twisted, then shifted to a cold calculation that terrified me more than his rage. He wrapped his hand in his shirt. The fabric turned red almost instantly. His voice came out soft and deliberate, as if speaking to a child. "We need to talk about boundaries and consequences." The way he said it made my skin crawl, so practiced, so rehearsed. I forced myself to nod, my voice shaky. "I'll listen. I'll do whatever you want. Please don't hurt me." He seemed to accept my false compliance and sat down across from me, still glancing at the rope on the floor as if deciding whether to use it now or later. My body was tense, ready to run though there was nowhere to go. He launched into a speech about respect and trust, like he was reciting a script about healthy family relationships. While he talked about how much he'd done for Mom and me, he picked up his phone and called my mother on speaker. She answered immediately, her voice trembling like she'd been crying all along. Brandon calmly told her I was having another episode, that I'd attacked him and hurt myself trying to break windows. I could hear her crying harder, saying she knew this would happen. Every word out of his mouth was a lie. I tried to shout the truth, that he'd locked me in, tried to tie me up, but he spoke right over me. He told Mom I was hysterical, that I needed professional care, maybe inpatient treatment. Mom's voice broke as she said she'd stay with Tilly a few more days to give me space. That's when I realized they'd planned this together before she left. After he hung up, I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered, but I forced myself to think. I told him my hand hurt and asked to use the bathroom, making my voice small and defeated. He studied me for a long moment, deciding if I was faking, then nodded but followed me to the bathroom door. I knew he wouldn't give me real privacy. I closed the door most of the way. It didn't latch, and I saw his shadow in the crack. On the floor near the shower, I spotted a tiny shard of glass from the window I'd broken earlier. I palmed it carefully, feeling the edge cut into my skin, and tucked it into my sock. It hurt, but it was the first thing that felt like hope since he dragged me back inside. When I came out, Brandon was waiting. He walked me to my room and showed me the new deadbolt he'd installed on the outside, the key safely in his pocket. Casually, he said I'd be staying there for 3 days, until I learned my lesson about lying. The way he said 3 days made my stomach drop. He had planned every detail. He opened the door and gestured for me to go in. I walked into my own room, like it was a cell. The deadbolt clicked shut behind me, with a solid metallic sound. I stayed still, listening to his footsteps fade downstairs. I pull the glass shard from my sock, and use it to scratch a message under my dresser where it won't be seen unless someone moves the furniture. My hands are trembling so badly, the letters come out uneven, but I write the date, the time, and locked from outside by Brandon in small letters. It feels like leaving a trail for anyone who might find me later, like creating proof this really happened. Hours pass while I sit on my bed trying not to panic and thinking about what to do next. Eventually, I hear the deadbolt slide open. Brandon comes in with a sandwich and water, setting the tray down just inside the door while watching me carefully. He asks about my father, and what exactly I told him. I copy his calm tone and give him the answers he wants to hear. I say I made everything up because I was angry about the divorce, that Dad did nothing wrong and neither did Brandon. The lies taste bitter, but I force them out so he'll believe his plan is working. When he leaves again, I wait for his footsteps to fade down the hallway before I search my desk drawer for anything useful. I find an old pen with some ink left, and press the tip against my palm, writing help locked in shaky letters that barely stay straight. My hands keep trembling, but the words are still readable enough that someone might see them if I get a chance. Even this small plan makes me feel less helpless, like I'm taking action instead of waiting for whatever he has planned next. I hear his voice downstairs and press my ear against the heating vent in my floor, listening closely. He's on the phone, his tone smooth and casual, completely different from how he sounds with me. I catch parts of the conversation and realize he's calling the alarm company, saying his stepdaughter accidentally set off the system and everything is fine. He sounds normal and reasonable, which makes my stomach turn. I'm realizing how skilled he is at lying, how practiced he is at appearing like a concerned parent. The call ends, and I move away from the vent, my heart pounding because now I know no one is coming to check on the broken window or the alarm. Hours pass, and my stomach cramps badly from my period. I realize I can use this. I call through the door that I'm having female issues, and really need the bathroom, making my voice sound embarrassed and urgent. Brandon unlocks the door after a few minutes, looking annoyed, but he lets me out and follows me to the bathroom. Inside, I notice the rope he used earlier is sitting on the sink, probably left there when he washed his bleeding hand. I work my fingers along the fibers as quietly as I can, loosening and fraying some strands, so maybe it will break if he tries to use it again. When I come out, Brandon is waiting in the hallway. He walks me back to my room without a word and locks the door behind me with the heavy click of the deadbolt. I sit on my bed and press my ear against the heating vent again. This time I hear something different from his room. He's recording himself on his phone, practicing how to explain my episodes to people who might ask questions. I hear him rehearse lines about my dad filling my head with lies and me having a history of harming myself, building a story about me being unstable and making things up. He records the same explanation several times, changing his tone until it sounds perfectly concerned and believable. Night falls. The house grows quiet, and I start paying attention to Brandon's footsteps in the hallway. He walks past my door about every hour, like he's checking to make sure I'm still locked in. I listen to the creaks of the floorboards and time how long he spends in different parts of the house, turning my fear into information I can use. I memorize which boards creak the loudest and how long it takes him to walk from his room to mine. At sunrise the next morning, I test the screws on the window again, confirming they're still drilled in tight. I start making real plans instead of panicking. Plan A is signaling Miss Apple next time I see her, maybe showing my palm message through a window. Plan B is trying to break through my bedroom door or punching a hole in the drywall, though I'm not sure I'm strong enough. Neither option is good, but doing nothing means staying locked in for 3 days with Brandon, and I can't let that happen. I tear a page from my old notebook and write "help locked in." Call police in the biggest letters I can fit. I fold it tight, go to the bathroom, and toss the note through the small window toward Miss Apple's yard. I watch it land in her bushes near her back door. I don't know if she'll ever find it, but at least I tried. Brandon brings me breakfast later. I act even more cooperative, quietly asking for ice for my swollen hand. He seems pleased with my compliance and brings me an ice pack wrapped in a plastic bag, setting it on my dresser while watching me. While he stands there, I slip a second tiny note into the seam of the plastic bag, hoping it might be found later if the bag is thrown away. By afternoon, I grab a towel from my closet and use it to partially block the heating vent, creating just enough smoke to trigger the detector for a second before I clear it. The alarm beeps and Brandon rushes upstairs. Through the crack in my door, I watch him check the detector and reset it. Now I know his emergency response pattern and how long it takes him to reach my room when something goes wrong. He sits down on the hallway floor outside my door and starts showing me more fake text messages supposedly from my mom. The screen is angled so I can see them through the gap. They mention her worrying about my mental state and wanting to get me help. I notice the timestamps don't match up, and there are typos she would never make, your instead of your, missing punctuation. I catalog every detail as proof he's fabricating evidence, storing it in my memory so I can tell someone later if I get the chance. A few hours later, I hear his truck engine start in the driveway. My heart jumps, thinking maybe he's leaving. I rush to test the door handle, but it's still locked from the outside. I press my ear to the wood to figure out what he's doing. The truck idles for a minute, then goes quiet. I move to the window to see. He's back within 20 minutes, carrying bags from the hardware store. He unloads zip ties and duct tape from the truck bed. My whole body goes cold because I know what those supplies mean. He glances up at my window. I duck back, but I think he saw me watching. My hands shake as I grab the pen I used earlier and pull up my sleeve. I start drawing a rough map on my forearm, marking where each injury is. The rope burns on my wrists, the cuts from the broken window, the bruises from being dragged across Miss Apple's lawn. I write tiny timestamps next to each mark, using the clock on my broken Chromebook as reference. Rope burns at 8:47 p.m. Window cuts at 8:52 p.m. Bruises at 9:03 p.m. I'm turning my body into evidence, because it might be all I have if I get out. I pull my jeans down slightly and write more timestamps on my inner thigh, where no one will see unless they're looking for proof. My skin burns from pressing the pen so hard, but I need this to be clear and readable. I hear footsteps on the stairs and quickly pull my sleeve back down, sitting on my bed to look calm. Miss Apple's voice carries from downstairs. I freeze. She's here. Maybe she found one of my notes. I press my body against the door and strain to hear. Brandon intercepts her at the front door, his voice smooth and friendly. I angle myself near the banister gap, and for a second manage to flash my palm with the words, "Help" locked, still visible in smudged ink. I hold it as long as I can, but Brandon's body blocks her view quickly, and I don't know if she saw it. Their voices fade as he walks her back to her house. I slump against the door, feeling defeated. When he comes back upstairs, his footsteps stop right outside my room. His voice comes through the door, telling me I've earned punishment for trying to signal the neighbor. I hear him go to the bathroom. Then there's a metallic creak, followed by silence. He's turned off the water to my bathroom. I can hear the pipes go quiet. I rush to the sink and turn the handle, but nothing comes out. The toilet tank still has water, but that's it. My mind goes to the half-full bottle on my nightstand and how to ration it. My throat feels dry just thinking about it. That night, while Brandon watches TV downstairs, I get down on the floor and look under my bed frame. There are wooden slats supporting the mattress, and I test one with my hands to see if it will break. I move as quietly as possible, pressing on the weakest slat, taking nearly 2 hours to snap it without making a sound. Every few minutes, I pause to check that Brandon is still downstairs. Finally, the wood cracks, and I catch both pieces before they hit the floor. I slide the longer piece under my mattress near the headboard, hidden from sight even if he searches. Now I have something that might work as a pry bar, and the small success helps push back the panic building inside me. I test its weight in my hand. It feels solid enough to use as a tool or, if necessary, a weapon. I watch through the crack under my door, as the hallway light throws shadows of Brandon's feet, moving back and forth. He stretches out on the couch, and I can see his legs' shadow pattern. I time his breathing by the slight shifts of the shadows. After about 40 minutes, I recognize a slower rhythm. He's dozing off. It's 3 a.m. according to my dead Chromebook, and I'm wide awake, tracking his patterns like I'm studying a dangerous animal. Even in sleep, he shifts every 12 to 15 minutes. His phone alarm goes off at 3:30 a.m. He checks something, then returns to the couch. I'm collecting every detail about his habits and weaknesses, because it's the only control I have. Using the makeshift pry bar, I start working on the interior door hinges as quietly as possible. The pins are old and slightly rusted, which actually helps loosen them. I move millimeter by millimeter over the next hour, stopping whenever I hear any noise from downstairs. Everything still looks normal from the outside, but now I know I could lift the whole door off its hinges if I had to. Having a possible escape makes the room feel less like a cage. Brandon's phone rings downstairs, and I hear Mom's voice on speaker. She's crying, her words breaking with sobs. I press my ear to the heating vent to listen. She says she can't handle this, and her voice shakes. Brandon responds calmly, sounding understanding. Then she says something that makes my stomach drop, asking him not to make her choose between us. It hits hard because she already chose when she packed and left me here. I swallow the anger and grief. Falling apart won't help. I pull out strands of my hair one at a time, sliding them under the door gap and blowing gently to watch the airflow from the hallway. The hall lights are still on, and I see the thin gap beneath the door, maybe a quarter inch at most. I test different spots along the bottom and find the widest point near the hinges. I'm gathering every possible weakness in the room, every tiny opening that might be useful later. Before sunrise, I hear Brandon's footsteps on the stairs and then the sound of a power drill. Peeking through the crack in my door, I see him mounting something above the frame. When he steps back, I realize it's a security camera with a blinking red light pointed at my door, but the light isn't real. It's just a reflection from the hallway. There's no wire, and the bracket looks cheap. He's trying to scare me with a fake camera. Catching the trick gives me a little confidence back. In the morning, Brandon unlocks my door and stands there with his arms crossed. He says I can use the bathroom for 5 minutes, pointing at his watch like I'm on a schedule. I pass him and lock the bathroom door. My hands still shake from yesterday. The glass shard is still hidden in my sock. I pull it out while running the sink water to mask any sound, working the shard under the corner of the window screen, where I spotted a screw. I twist and pry quietly. The metal is old, the screw threads stripped, which helps it turn. I keep glancing at the door, listening for footsteps. My heart pounds in my throat. After what feels like forever, the screw drops into my palm, the sharp threads pressing into my skin. The screen is now loose at one corner, moving about an inch from the frame. If I get the other screws out, I might remove the whole screen and open the window. It's smaller than the one in my bedroom, but I think I could fit through it if needed. I tuck the screw into my sock with the shard, flush the toilet, and wash my hands as if nothing happened. Brandon knocks, telling me my time is up. I take one last look at the screen corner before opening the door. He walks me back to my room, locks it, and goes downstairs. Sitting on my bed, I pull out the screw to study it. It's small but solid, maybe half an inch long. Just holding it gives me a sense of control. I'm building options, piece by piece, things he doesn't know about that might save me later. An hour passes, and I hear Brandon's voice downstairs on the phone. Pressing my ear to the vent, his words drift up. He's complaining about nosy neighbors, and mentions a welfare check. My chest tightens. Miss Apple must have called someone. Maybe she saw my signal, or just noticed I haven't been around. Brandon's voice has an edge now, like he's nervous. He tells whoever's on the line that everything's fine and his stepdaughter is grounded for lying. He sounds calm and reasonable, which makes me sick. I feel both hope and fear. If someone's checking on me, that's good. But I know how well Brandon can lie. He performed for Miss Apple yesterday, and he'll do the same for anyone else. I think about how to make them see the truth, show them the lock on my door, or somehow get them to hear me. But no plan seems good enough. 2 hours later, a car pulls up outside. Through my window, I see a police cruiser park. My whole body floods with desperate energy. I start pounding the floor with my fists, screaming for help until my voice is raw. I know the police are right downstairs. They have to hear me. But then the TV blasts so loud, the bass shakes the house. The noise drowns out everything. I keep screaming anyway, pounding until my hands hurt. I can hear muffled voices below, men's voices and Brandon's smooth replies, but the TV is too loud to make out anything clear. After about 10 minutes, the voices stop. The front door closes. I scramble to the window and watch the police cruiser pull away. My legs give out, and I slide down against the door. They were just feet away and couldn't hear me. Brandon's footsteps come up the stairs and stop outside my door. He doesn't speak, but I can feel him there. Then he walks away. The TV volume drops back to normal. The house is quiet again. I force myself to stand even though my whole body feels heavy. Waiting for rescue isn't working. I find a piece of paper and a pen almost out of ink. I start writing everything in the smallest letters I can, every detail I can fit. I note the brand name of the lock, master lock barrel bolt, and where it's mounted outside my door. I record the timeline from when Mom left to when Brandon locked me in, broke the window, dragged me back. I describe the fake texts and his rehearsed stories on voice memos. My hand cramps, but I keep going, filling both sides of the page. When I'm done, I fold it into a small square and wait for my next bathroom break. An hour later, Brandon lets me out. I palm the note on my way to the bathroom. Locking the door, I climb onto the toilet to reach the small window above it. The window doesn't open, but there's a half-inch gap at the bottom where the seal is broken. I fold the note even smaller and push it through, watching it flutter down toward Miss Apple's yard. It lands closer to her back door this time, right by her recycling bins. I just pray she notices it, or at least one of the notes I've been leaving. Brandon bangs on the door, telling me to hurry, and I quickly wash my hands, my heart racing. When I step out, he grabs my arm and drags me toward the bathroom instead of my room. He says I need to bathe and clean off the dried blood on my hands and arms. I don't want to, but fear keeps me from refusing. I nod, and he starts the water. He stays in the room the entire time, leaning against the counter and watching me. I've never felt more cornered. I keep my eyes down, trying not to cry, as I scrub the blood from my skin. The cuts from the window are crusted over, but some reopen and bleed when the water hits them. Quietly, I pull strands of my hair one at a time, letting them drift into the water. When I bend as if washing my legs, I push the hairs under the baseboard where a small gap swallows them. If someone ever investigates, they'll find my DNA in unusual spots, evidence I was leaving behind on purpose. The thought keeps me focused, even with Brandon's eyes on me. I'm not just enduring this, I'm planning. I glance up and notice him shifting uncomfortably. The bite mark from yesterday looks infected, swollen and oozing yellow. He winces when he moves his fingers and mutters about it. Then he tells me to finish and get dressed. He leaves, and I hear him in the hall on the phone, asking a pharmacy about antiseptic cream and bandages. My pulse spikes if he goes out. That means he'll leave me alone. He calls through the door, saying he'll be gone for 20 minutes and that he's set extra locks. His tone carries a sharp threat when he warns me he'll know if I try anything. I hear multiple locks clicking on my door, far more than just one bolt. Then his footsteps fade downstairs. Soon, his truck engine roars and pulls away. The second the sound fades, I act. I pull out the wooden slat hidden under my mattress and rush to the door. The hinge pins are already loose from last night's work. I wedge the slat at the top and start prying upward. The door is heavier than I imagined. My arms tremble as I use my full weight to push. It finally shifts. Sweat drips down my face, but I push harder an inch, then two. The gap grows wider. I nearly lose my grip, but adjust and lift again. 3 inches, 4. Enough space. I drop the slat, grip the frame, and haul myself up. My shoulders scrape raw against the wood, leaving skin and blood behind, but I squeeze through and fall hard onto the hallway floor. I crawl to the bathroom, shove the dresser under the window, and climb up. My hands shake so badly, I can barely grip the latch. It's stuck from layers of paint. I dig at it with my nails. Nothing. Desperate, I grab a wire hanger, bend it, and scrape the paint away. Finally, the latch moves, and I push it open. The window is tiny, barely 18 inches across, but I force myself to try. My hips stick, my ribs scrape painfully, but adrenaline drives me. I twist, shove, and slip through, tumbling onto the roof. The shingles burn under the sun, scraping my skin as I slide down too fast. Then I fall again into the bushes below. Thorns tear into me, branches scratch my face, but I'm outside. For the first time, I'm out. I push myself up despite the pain and run low toward Miss Apple's house. I slip through the gate into her yard, gasping for breath. My heart sinks when I see both my notes crumpled in her recycling bin. She never saw them. All that risk, discarded as trash. I fight back tears, but then I hear it. Brandon's truck turning onto the street. I have less than a minute. Panic floods me as I sprint to her back door. I bang in the secret rhythm from childhood games. 3 fast, 2 slow, 3 fast. Our code. Please let her remember. The door opens. Miss Apple stands there confused, until I thrust my arm forward. The injury map I drew is still there. Times and locations inked on my skin. I gasp out words about Brandon, the lock begging her to call 911. Her face shifts from confusion to horror as she sees the bruises and cuts. She pulls me inside and locks the door, dialing 911 on speaker. I shake uncontrollably as she explains to the dispatcher that her neighbor's stepdaughter escaped confinement and is injured. Through the window, I see Brandon's truck creeping down the street. He notices my open window and stops. Miss Apple quickly closes the curtain, locks the door, and guides me to a chair as my legs give out. The dispatcher asks questions, and Miss Apple hands me the phone. My teeth chatter, but I force myself to speak. I explain about the lock, the escape, the broken window. The dispatcher reassures me that officers are coming. Hearing that help is on its way nearly breaks me. Miss Apple wraps a blanket around me. For the first time, someone believes me. The dispatcher asks about injuries, and I describe the cuts and rope burns. Miss Apple goes pale when she sees my wrists. Then there's a knock at the door. Brandon's voice, calm and concerned, claiming I need medication, that I've been confused. I shake my head at Miss Apple, silently begging her not to believe him. She doesn't open the door. She tells him police are on their way, and he should wait at his house. His voice hardens, insisting he needs to show paperwork, but she stays silent until his footsteps retreat. The dispatcher instructs us to stay inside with the doors locked. Miss Apple double-checks everything, while I sit shaking, terrified he'll appear at the window. She offers water, and I nod. My throat is dry, and I spill as I drink too fast, unable to steady the glass. 2 police cars arrive, and Miss Apple opens the door at once. Officers come inside. One radios while another kneels before me. Crying, I show my wrists, telling them about the lock Brandon installed on my door. For the first time, I know I sip safe. He said I had 3 days, and that he was going to teach me a lesson. The officer writes everything in his notebook, asking for exact times and locations, especially where the lock was. I explain how Brandon showed Miss Apple fake texts from my mom and rehearsed his story about me having episodes. Both officers take notes seriously. The second officer asks if I have other injuries, and I show my hands with cuts from the broken window, my scraped ribs, and broken fingernails. They photograph everything on their phones and document carefully. One of them calls for an ambulance, but I insist I don't need one yet. I just need them to see the lock. Miss Apple confirms Brandon tried to bring me back earlier, and that she saw my injuries when I came to her door. About 10 minutes later, a detective arrives. He introduces himself as Logan Ware. He explains he handled the welfare check earlier and is following up now that circumstances have changed. He asks me to walk through the full timeline, starting from when my mom left, and I recount everything in order: the exterior deadbolt, the screws in the window frame, how he cut power when I tried contacting a friend. Detective Ware notes every detail, asking specific questions about the lock brand and mechanism. His professional approach, without any hint of doubt, makes me trust him enough to reveal more. I tell him about the message scratched under my dresser with the date and time, the hair hidden under the bathroom baseboard, and the injury map written on my arm with timestamps. He studies my forearm and photographs the markings, telling me this kind of documentation is crucial for building a case. For the first time, I feel my planning is making a difference. The officers ask if I can show them the lock. Detective Ware agrees to come along, and Miss Apple offers to join, which I appreciate because I don't want to return alone, even with police present. We walk next door. Brandon's truck is gone, which brings both relief and unease. Officers check the house first, then call us in. I lead them upstairs and point to the heavy deadbolt on the outside of my door. One officer photographs it from multiple angles, while another examines the frame. Detective Ware asks when it was installed, if I heard drilling, and I explain about the power drill and how long it took. They document the loosened hinge pins, the broken window, and the scratched message under the dresser. One officer carefully shifts the dresser and photographs the etched words with the date and time. Seeing my room treated like a crime scene makes everything feel real. They bag the lock as evidence, and Detective Ware notes the window screws and alarm system details. I tell them I need my injuries officially recorded at the hospital, and Detective Ware agrees immediately, arranging transport. He explains medical records will strengthen the case. Miss Apple squeezes my hand before I leave, apologizing for missing my notes earlier. I tell her it's okay. What mattered was believing me when I showed up at her door, injured. She cries, saying she should have noticed sooner. One officer drives me to the ER while Detective Ware remains to finish documenting. At the hospital, they bring me back quickly. Once I explain, the nurse is calm and thorough, photographing every injury: rope burns on my wrists, cuts from the window, scrapes on my ribs from squeezing through, broken nails from clawing at the frame. She asks me to describe how each occurred and records everything. She measures the rope burns, notes their depth and pattern, and photographs the bruises on my ankles where Brandon grabbed me. The process takes over an hour, but I'm relieved at the thoroughness. She cleans the worst cuts, bandages them, and gives me pain relief. Then she explains someone from Victim Services will speak with me. A woman named Opal Sellers introduces herself as a victim advocate. She explains the next steps clearly: the police investigation process, CPS involvement for safety, protective orders, and possible criminal charges depending on evidence. She outlines my rights during this process, discusses temporary placement options, and explains protective orders in detail. She recognizes how overwhelmed I am and writes down the key points for me. She gives me her card, promising support with systems and paperwork. She also explains counseling services, legal rights during interviews and trials, and what to expect moving forward. Having this information presented plainly helps me feel less lost. Detective Ware returns for a more detailed interview. I give him everything: the exact lock brand I saw in the trash, Brandon canceling the alarm service, voice memos where he rehearsed stories, fake texts with mismatched timestamps. Detective Ware records all of it and tells me such specifics make the case stronger. I explain the injury map, the thrown notes, and times of major events. He seems impressed at my documentation and assures me it will help. I try calling my mom, but it goes straight to voicemail. I leave a calm, factual message, asking her to call me back, and noting I've contacted CPS. I don't accuse or raise my voice, just state what happened. Opal nods, saying that was the right approach, as it keeps my mom from becoming defensive, even though I'd be justified in anger. Detective Ware adds that her cooperation later could matter. I save the voicemail in multiple places for record keeping. Victim Services places me in a hotel room temporarily. It has 2 beds, a mini fridge, and curtains that barely close. Opal drops off essentials, clothes, toothpaste, and tells me to call if I need anything. That night, I get 3 calls from a blocked number. Each time, I hover over the screen, but don't answer. Remembering Opal's warning, Brandon leaves no messages. Choosing not to answer feels like a small measure of control. I save screenshots of the calls with timestamps as evidence. The next morning, a CPS caseworker, Phyllis Chambers, calls at 8:30. Her voice is flat, professional, and she asks about my living situation and family history, where I've been, who I live with, whether other relatives could take me. I answer clearly, though my throat tightens. She isn't warm, but not unkind, just focused on procedure. She schedules an in-person meeting the next day at 2 p.m. She explains this is standard for parental neglect cases. Hearing the word neglect feels different than abuse, like confirmation that my mom failed to protect me. It hurts to hear it said plainly, even though it's true. An hour later, Detective Ware calls with an update. Brandon has provided police with text message screenshots, supposedly from me, claiming I fabricated everything. My stomach sinks. Detective Ware asks if I'll allow their tech team to examine my phone to verify metadata and confirm authenticity of messages. I agree right away, because I know those texts are fake. I never sent anything like that. Detective Ware says they'll need my phone for a few days and asks if I have another way to stay in contact. I give him the hotel phone number. He tells me cooperating fully is the right step. Later that afternoon, Opal comes by with her laptop and a legal pad. She helps me write a dated affidavit, starting from when my mom left with the suitcases and moving through every detail I remember. I include the evidence I hid, the message scratched under my dresser, the hair under the bathroom baseboard, and the injury timestamps I marked on my body. Opal types as I talk, asking questions to pin down exact times and locations. She says physical evidence makes my account stronger, and documenting things in real time increases credibility. After printing it, I read it carefully before signing. Seeing everything written clearly makes the situation feel more structured, like I'm building a case instead of just surviving chaos. 2 days later, CPS does a home visit with police escort. Going back inside the house makes my chest tighten, but Phyllis and 2 officers walk me in. The key is still under the mat. Inside, everything looks ordinary. The couch where Brandon tied me, the stairs where he grabbed my ankle, my bedroom door with the lock on the outside. Phyllis photographs the lock. In my room, I show them the carved message under the dresser. One officer moves it while another photographs the words. They also record the loosened door hinges that show my escape attempt. In the bathroom, I point to the baseboard, and an officer carefully recovers the hair sample with tweezers and seals it. Watching them turn my survival tactics into official evidence feels unsettling, but it also helps to see it taken seriously. That evening, my mom finally calls. Her voice is defensive. She says, Brandon told her I was having episodes like after Dad went to prison, and he showed her messages where I supposedly threatened myself. She says she thought leaving me alone would calm me down. I don't argue. I calmly tell her CPS wants to meet with both of us and ask if she'll agree. After a long silence, she says yes. I tell her Phyllis will call with details and hang up before she can say anything else. The next day, Detective Ware updates me. His preliminary review shows Brandon's texts don't match my phone's carrier records. The messages were made on a computer and sent to his phone to frame me. He explains metadata and IP tracking confirm this. Hearing it validated makes me feel both relieved and sick. Relieved because it proves I was honest. Sick because of the planning behind his lies. Phyllis calls about the safety plan. No contact with Brandon and only supervised contact with Mom until the investigation ends. She stresses it's about protection, not punishment. Still, part of me grieves that my own mom isn't trusted alone with me. I ask what happens if she breaks the rules. Phyllis says there are consequences, but doesn't give details. 2 days later, I meet my mom at the CPS office. Phyllis sits with us. I describe what Brandon did. The lock, the rope, the 3-day plan, and what Mom knew before she left. I keep it factual, not emotional. My mom shakes her head through most of it, stuck between denial and defensiveness. Finally, Phyllis gives her an interim agreement. No contact between me and Brandon, and she must attend family counseling. My mom signs, but never admits she knew he was dangerous. It's not the accountability I wanted, but Phyllis says it's progress. I feel drained, not proud, like all my effort only got me a piece of paper saying she'll do the minimum to keep me safe. 2 days later, Detective Ware calls. A judge approved a warrant to search Brandon's phone and computer because of the fake texts. He explains they'll check creation dates, software used, and build a timeline. He warns legal cases, move slowly, but this step makes me feel less powerless. The next morning, Opal calls with a trauma counselor referral. The counselor already has my case file, so I won't need to retell everything from the start. I dread repeating details, but also want professional help carrying this weight. Opal says the counselor won't push me into emotions I'm not ready for, only help with coping skills and safety plans, which feels manageable. 3 days later, police ask me to return to the house. Detective Ware and 2 officers meet me. I show them the carved message again. They move the dresser, photograph it, and preserve it properly. Detective Ware compares the dates with my ER records and first police report. They match. He says real-time documentation is powerful evidence, proving I wasn't inventing details afterward. Hearing that my desperate notes are treated as evidence makes me feel validated. A week later, Phyllis updates me about my mom. CPS and her lawyer pushed her to hand over her phone so the carrier can pull records. Phyllis says this shows my mom is beginning to accept Brandon faked evidence, even if she won't admit leaving me with him was dangerous. I see it as progress, but not accountability. 3 weeks after I escaped, Detective Ware calls with the breakthrough. Brandon will be charged with unlawful restraint and evidence tampering. The DA is reviewing the case. He warns it may take months, but says my careful documentation made it possible. The court also grants a temporary protective order requiring Brandon to stay 500 feet away. CPS decides the hotel isn't stable, so I'm moved to a foster family with trauma experience. My foster mom, Lissa Turner, is calm and straightforward. She shows me my own room, with a locking door. For the first time in weeks, I feel safe. 4 days later, I have my first counseling session. Retelling everything is hard, but the counselor doesn't push for positivity or lessons. Instead, we set practical goals, like better sleep and updating my safety plan. It feels manageable. Miss Apple visits the following week. She apologizes again for missing my signals at first. Then she admits she did see the message on my palm that night. But Brandon blocked her view so quickly she doubted herself. She agrees to testify as a witness. Knowing she actually saw it proves I tried everything I could. She promises to tell the truth now. That night, I record a voice memo on my phone with the date, listing everything that's happened, the DA's next steps, and key contact numbers, Detective Ware, Phyllis, and Opal, along with the protective order details. I back it up in 3 places. Having this factual record Makes me feel prepared instead of afraid, like I'm building my own safety net one step at a time. If something happens, I won't need to panic and remember, it'll all be saved. That's where things stand. If you're still here, I'm impressed and a little concerned. But if you've followed along this far, you might as well subscribe.